If I'm married and I have to go into a nursing home, what does my spouse get to keep?
That's a great question, and there's two components to that we're going to talk about. One is assets and one is income. So here in Ohio, the spouse that's staying at home gets to keep all of his or her income. So Medicaid doesn't touch that. Now the spouse that needs Medicaid says they get to keep $50 of their income. So if they've got Social Security and pensions coming in, Medicaid says all they get to keep is $50 of that a month. And then they get to pay their own health insurance premiums out of their income. And then Medicaid says the rest of their income goes to the nursing home or goes towards their long-term care, kind of like a copay, but Medicaid calls that patient liability. Now, there's an exception to that. If the spouse that's at home, which Medicaid calls the community spouse, if they have really low income, they're not going to be able to survive if all the institutionalized spouse, the one that's applying for Medicaid, if all that income, if they don't get to keep any of that income. So Medicaid rules say if the healthy spouse, the community spouse's income is less than about $2,000, then Medicaid will let them keep some of the sick spouse's income, so that when we add it to the healthy spouse's income, we get them up to at least about $2,000 of income. And that can still be very hard on folks. If we were working with clients recently, and they have about $4,500 right now coming in their household, and the husband has most of that income. It's about $3,500 his. So even if we get the wife up to $2,000 in income, she's still going to be suffering because she's used to a household budget of $4,500. So that's the rules, how they work on income. Now let's talk about assets. For a husband and wife, Medicaid typically treats the house as exempt unless it's in a trust, and that's something we have to deal with. Car is exempt, so the most valuable car and household stuff is typically exempt. Now everything else, husband and wife stuff, they lump together. All the other assets they lump together, and the typical rule is they divide it in half, and they say healthy spouse should get to keep one half unless your one half's worth more than about $119,000. That number adjusts out of Columbus every couple of years, but right now it's around $119,000. So typically they get to keep one half unless their half's more than $119,000. And anything that they don't get to keep is part of the spend down. It has to be spent down before Medicaid will pay for the bills. So that's where we help clients is to know what the rules are, to help them protect what otherwise they'd have to spend down. So even though Medicaid says you need to spend this down, it does not have to be spent at the nursing home or on long-term care. There's legal options, other options under Medicaid's rules. Think of it like the IRS code where there's exemptions. Medicaid has exemptions too, and if you work with somebody like us that knows those exemptions, we can save significant money out of the spend down, so it doesn't have to be spent at the nursing home or in long-term care.